international fugitive Do Kwon has been indicted by U.S. prosecutors on fraud charges.
A cryptocurrency fraud that wiped out at least $40 billion in market value last year.
May 2022. The crypto world holds its breath. Billions of dollars are vanishing into thin air, hour by hour. An empire built on digital dreams, promising stability in the volatile world of cryptocurrency, is imploding. Terrausd, or UST, a revolutionary stablecoin supposedly pegged to the US dollar, is in freefall. Its sister token, Luna, designed to absorb the shock, is caught in a death spiral, its value plummeting over 99.9%. The man behind this digital utopia, the charismatic and often arrogant Do Kwon, watches as his creation drags the entire crypto market down with it, erasing nearly $500 billion in value. How could a system designed for stability, a system built not on dollars but on complex code and incentives, cause such unprecedented chaos? How did promises of a risk-free 20% return lead to financial ruin for so many? And how did a Stanford graduate, once lauded as a visionary, ignore the warnings and become one of the most wanted men in the world? Known to the world as Do Kwon, he was born Kwon Do-hyung in Seoul in 1991. He attended a prestigious South Korean high school, then headed to Stanford University in the heart of Silicon Valley. He graduated in 2015 with a computer science degree. He cut his teeth as a software engineer at giants like Microsoft and Apple, absorbing the culture of innovation and disruption. But the corporate world couldn't hold him. By 2016, he was back in South Korea launching his first startup, Anyfi, with a goal of acquiring $1 million in funding for the bold idea, decentralized wireless mesh networks. Even then, the seeds of challenging established systems were sown. This early venture showcased Kwon's technical prowess and his knack for attracting investment, traits that would define his next, much larger endeavor. January 2018, Terraform Labs is born. Co-founded with Daniel Shin in a humble Airbnb, the vision was grand, a new financial system built on the blockchain. Inspired by the adaptable Terran race from his favorite game StarCraft, Kwon named his creation Terra. The initial goal? To revolutionize e-commerce payments, making them faster and cheaper using stablecoins. Their early success with the Chai payment platform in Korea, attracting millions of users, seemed to prove the concept. But Kwon's ambition stretched far beyond online shopping. He was dreaming bigger, aiming to build an entire decentralized financial world, and the key, a revolutionary type of digital money. But this wasn't just any stablecoin. It was an algorithmic one, meaning its value wasn't backed by real dollars in a bank, but by complex code and rules. A concept so audacious, it promised stability without the need for traditional reserves. Was it genius or a ticking time bomb? The answer would determine the fate of billions. The foundation of Terra was its blockchain, essentially a highly secure, shared digital record book. It was designed to be fast, safe, and able to connect smoothly with other crypto networks. Instead of Bitcoin's energy-intensive mining, Terra used a different security system called proof of stake. This meant the network was secured by people who owned its special, native cryptocurrency called Luna. They could lock up their Luna tokens, almost like posting a security deposit, to help validate transactions and keep the network honest, earning rewards in return. But Luna had other crucial jobs too. It acted as a governance token, meaning Luna holders got voting rights to decide on the future direction of the Terra project, similar to how shareholders vote in a company. And most importantly, Luna's own price, its value, was directly tied to the success and adoption of Terra's main products, the stablecoins. At the heart of it all was TerraUSD, better known as UST. Unlike stablecoins backed by actual dollars in the bank, UST's $1 peg was maintained by code. a complex dance with Luna. The system worked like this. You could always swap $1 worth of Luna for 1 UST, and vice versa. If UST traded above $1, traders were incentivized to burn Luna to create more UST, increasing its supply and pushing the price back down. If UST fell below $1, traders could buy cheap UST and burn it to mint $1 worth of Luna, reducing UST supply and pushing the price back up. This constant arbitrage, this burn and mint equilibrium, was the engine designed to keep UST stable. It was clever, decentralized, and didn't rely on traditional banks. It was the algorithmic dream. But it relied on one crucial assumption, that Luna would always have value, and that the market would always act as rationally to maintain the peg. An assumption that would later be tested to its breaking point. What could possibly supercharge demand for this experimental stablecoin and make people overlook the inherent risks? The answer lay in a protocol that seemed too good to be true. Enter Anchor Protocol, a savings platform built on Terra, offering something almost unheard of in any financial market, let alone crypto. A stable, predictable yield of nearly 20% annual return just for depositing UST. Think about that. While your bank might offer less than 1% interest, Anchor promised 20%. In a world of near zero interest rates, this was an irresistible lure. Marketed as safe and easy to use, Anchor became the killer app, the main attraction drawing people into the Terra ecosystem. So how could Anchor possibly afford to pay out such high returns? The money came from a few places. First, people could borrow UST from Anchor, but they had to lock up other crypto assets they owned, like Luna, as security, similar to how a house acts as a security for a mortgage. Anchor earned interest from these borrowers. Second, the crypto assets locked up as security were often earning their own rewards in the background through a process called staking, and Anchor took a piece of that. But here's the catch. The money earned from borrowers and staking often wasn't enough to cover the promised 20% payouts to depositors. To make up the difference, Anchor used a yield reserve, basically a big pot of money funded by Terraform Labs, the company behind Terra. Think of it like a safety net, guaranteeing the 20% even when Anchor wasn't actually earning that. On top of all that, Anchor even paid borrowers extra rewards in its own token called ANC. Sometimes these bonus tokens were worth so much that people were effectively getting paid to borrow money, like getting cashback that's worth more than your loan interest. It seemed too good to be true, a complex machine running on promises and subsidies. The effect was electric. Investors, particularly those wary of crypto's volatility but hungry for yield, flocked to Anchor. Demand for UST skyrocketed, not necessarily for its utility, but simply to park it in Anchor and earn that sweet 20%. By March 2022, Anchor held over $1 billion. At its peak, nearly 70% of all UST in existence was locked in Anchor. It became de facto bank of Terra, the gravitational center around which the entire ecosystem revolved. The algorithmic dream now had rocket fuel, but as billions poured in, drawn by Anchor's siren song, were people ignoring the warning signs? But even as Terra Luna rocketed toward a staggering market cap in the tens of billions, fueled by Anchor's impossible returns, a sense of unease began to creep in beneath the glittering surface of success. The foundations felt increasingly shaky. Financial analysts and crypto veterans started looking closer, questioning if this revolutionary algorithmic stablecoin, balanced dangerously on complex code and its volatile sister token, could truly withstand market pressure. The incredible 20% yield on Anchor, seemingly conjured out of thin air, drew particular scrutiny. Critics began pointing to the glaring imbalance. Far more money was being deposited to chase the yield than was being borrowed. This meant Anchor wasn't earning nearly enough to pay its depositors. It was leaning heavily on a reserve fund, essentially subsidies from Terraform Labs, just to keep the promise alive. Comparisons to Ponzi schemes became unavoidable. Was the whole thing just a house of cards propped up by marketing hype and unsustainable payouts? A bubble stretching thinner and thinner, ready to burst at the slightest touch? Bloomberg News, cross-tower analysts, academic papers from MBER and Harvard Law, the warnings were there. They highlighted the unsustainable subsidies, the systemic risk of relying on Anchor, and the inherent fragility of the algorithmic peg. Yet amidst the euphoria, these concerns were often dismissed, sometimes aggressively by the ecosystem's charismatic leader, Do Kwon himself, a pattern of defiance we'll see again later. The foundations looked strong, but unseen cracks were spreading. The stage was set for a catastrophic failure. Saturday, May 7th, 2022. The beginning of the end. Large amounts of UST are suddenly withdrawn from Anchor and swapped for other stablecoins on the decentralized exchange Curve. Terraform Labs pulls 150 million UST from Curve's liquidity pool, likely to prepare for a new pool development. But the timing couldn't be worse. It reduces liquidity just as selling pressure mounts. UST wobbles, dipping slightly below its dollar peg to 98 cents. A small tremor, but enough to spook the market. Over the next 48 hours, the tremor becomes an earthquake. Confidence evaporates. A bank run ensues on Anchor Protocol, with $3 billion in UST withdrawn. Selling intensifies. UST crashes through 90 cents, then 80, and then plunges towards 60 cents on some exchanges. Luna, inextricably linked, begins its own terrifying descent. Terraform Labs and the Luna Foundation Guard, an entity set up to defend the peg with reserves including Bitcoin, tried to intervene, reportedly buying hundreds of millions of worth of UST. But it's like trying to stop a tsunami with a bucket. The algorithmic mechanism, designed for stability, now fuels the fire. As UST falls, the system desperately mints Luna in astronomical quantities, trying to incentivize arbitrageurs to bring UST back to $1. But with confidence shattered and UST in freefall, the arbitrage mechanism fails. Instead of restoring the peg, it triggers hyperinflation. Luna's supply explodes from around 340 million to over 6.5 trillion in mere days. Its price collapses by over 96%, then 99%, then becomes virtually worthless. The death spiral is complete. UST hits lows below 30 cents. On May 13th, Terraform Labs takes the unprecedented step of halting the entire Terra blockchain. The algorithmic dream has shattered. The shockwaves rip through the entire crypto market. Bitcoin tumbles, other stablecoins briefly depeg. Investor confidence is decimated. Regulators worldwide sharpen their focus. The Terra/Luna collapse isn't just the failure of one project. It's a brutal lesson in the interconnected risks and hidden fragilities of the digital asset world. But beyond the billions lost on charts, what was the real human cost? The numbers are staggering. Nearly $45 billion in market capitalization for UST and Luna erased in a week. The contagion contributes to perhaps $500 billion vanishing from the broader crypto market. But behind the numbers are people, investors who poured their life savings into the promise of 20% yields on a stable asset. Stories flood the internet. Retirements wiped out. College funds gone. Dreams shattered. Individuals losing hundreds of thousands. Facing homelessness. Reports emerge of devastating mental anguish, of people contemplating the worst imaginable outcome. A South Korean worker sees $40,000, his entire savings, disappear overnight. Class action lawsuits pile up against Terraform Labs and Do Kwon. The collapse wasn't just a market event, it was a human tragedy on a massive scale. As victims grappled with their losses, all eyes turned to the man at the center of it all. How would the architect respond? In the immediate aftermath, Do Kwon surfaces. He's heartbroken, he says, about the pain caused. He claims neither he nor Terraform Labs profited during the crash. He admits his assumptions were wrong. He emphasizes his own financial losses, but frames the collapse as a failure, not fraud. But this narrative is quickly complicated. Reports emerge of recorded conversations painting a different picture, one of defiance, seeking political protection and dismissing investigators. He vehemently denies allegations of siphoning funds as misinformation, the remorseful founder, or a defiant architect deflecting blame. The picture remained unclear. As a last-ditch effort, Kwon proposes a revival plan, quickly pushed through a governance vote. The idea: abandon the failed UST stablecoin and create a brand new blockchain, Terra 2.0, which would coexist alongside the old one, now rebranded as Terra Classic. New Luna tokens would be created and distributed in complex percentages to those who held the original Luna and UST, both before and after the crash, as well as developers. It was positioned as a way to compensate the community, a fresh start. Kwon even framed it as a comeback story, comparing it to Ethereum's recovery after a major hack, insisting Terra is more than just UST. May 28, 2022, Terra 2.0 launches on all major cryptocurrency exchanges. The new Luna token lists around $18 and briefly spikes towards $20, but the magic is gone. Within hours, the price plummets below $4. Many receiving the airdropped tokens immediately sold them, desperately trying to recoup even a fraction of their devastating losses from the original collapse. Investor confidence, shattered by the $45 billion wipeout, couldn't be rebuilt by a simple relaunch and a token handout. Despite a brief bump from exchange listings, Terra 2.0 languished, its price continuing to slide, a ghost of the original ecosystem's ambition, haunted by the failure of its predecessor. For many, it was too little, too late, and the authorities were starting to close in. The collapse triggers a global legal response. South Korea launches investigations targeting Kwon and his associates, imposing travel bans. In the United States, the Securities and Exchange Commission files charges accusing Kwon and Terraform Labs of orchestrating a multi-billion-dollar crypto asset securities fraud, alleging misleading statements about UST stability and the Chai payment app's usage. The charges are extensive: multiple counts of securities, commodities, and wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud, even conspiracy to commit money laundering. If convicted in the US alone, Kwon faces the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. But first, they had to find him. Following the collapse, Do Kwon vanishes, leaving Singapore. His whereabouts become a global guessing game for months, with authorities searching desperately, but to no avail. In March 2023, the chase ends in Montenegro. Kwon and a Terraform Labs associate are apprehended trying to board a flight to Dubai using forged Costa Rican passports. His arrest sparks an international tug-of-war. Both South Korea and the United States demand his extradition. After months of legal battles, appeals, and conflicting court rulings, Montenegro's Minister of Justice makes the final call. Do Kwon is extradited to the United States to face the sweeping fraud charges. In December 2024, he's handed over to the FBI, flown to Manhattan, and pleads not guilty. His trial looms, potentially years away. Do Kwon awaits trial in the United States, facing charges that could keep him imprisoned for life. The man who flew so close to the sun now faces the cold reality of the consequences. Yet the questions linger. Was it fraud, or simply catastrophic failure born of hubris? Can truly decentralized algorithmic finance ever be safe? As the courts dissect the remnants of the Terra empire, and the regulators grapple with the future of digital assets, the shockwaves of this $45 billion collapse continue to ripple outwards, leaving an indelible mark on the world of crypto and a stark reminder of the razor-thin line between innovation and disaster. Thank you so much if you made it this far. Exposing the cracks behind billion-dollar systems, that's what we do here at Generation Y. If you believe in holding tech giants, crypto empires, and so-called visionaries accountable, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, because the next financial illusion, the next hidden danger, is already being built.